mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 5, Episode 9 of Hulu's The Handmaid's Tale, entitled Allegiance. Before I get started though, real quick, I want to give you guys another reminder to follow me on social media at One Mic Network, which you can see the Chiron on Twitter. Search One Mic on Facebook. I'm going to be posting news there. This is incredibly important just because of the nature of how coverage is going to shift. I cover the same 3 or 4 shows for like a month or two, and then all of that changes. So November and December are going to see a lot of changes, and the best way to keep up with what those changes are going to be is to be following me on Twitter or Facebook. And then secondly, I want to give a shout out to my patrons, Delvin Cox, Brett Factual, Dez, Justice Smith-Williams, Brian Turner, Dancing Lights, Margaret Moffett, Esther, and Adam Weiss. And I want to implore you guys, if you are interested in becoming a Patreon, I don't want you to become a website. If you're interested in becoming a patron, you can check out the major announcement video on this channel, or you can click the Patreon link in the episode description. It'll take you to the website. And that's where all the tiers are broken down, and you can find out how much they cost and what you get for those prices. Now, let's talk about this episode because, for one, these are like the longest notes that I've ever had for an episode, and it's because this episode gave me a lot to think about. But I want to start with talking about the title. The title's called Allegiance. It's tied to this ending scene where shots are fired during this candlelight vigil for all of these soldiers that were killed in this failed attack. And this little girl who is the daughter of one of those soldiers is up there struggling with the Pledge of Allegiance. Shots ring out. June jumps on her and covers her. And that was the end of the episode. And that's where I'm assuming, since she was saying the Pledge of Allegiance, that's where the title comes from. I really liked this episode quite a bit. I love how it got the wheels turning in my head while I was watching it. And afterward, I've been thinking about it ever since I finished watching it. I'm not a huge fan of that shots fired ending though, especially for the penultimate episode. It was built up as like this super dramatic moment. You can feel the music swelling, you can feel the tension, but it felt like maybe something happened, maybe something didn't. Tune in next week to find out. And I'm like, I don't like that. More interesting to me would have been, let's say Moira was there and Moira got shot. June covers the girl, looks over, sees Moira on the ground bleeding, and then we end the episode. And now we gotta wonder, oh shit, what's gonna happen? Is she gonna die? Is she gonna live? That kind of thing. Whereas right now, I feel like I'm waiting just to see if anything happened at all, or if it's just the shots. The shots being fired. And that really just felt like an escalation of the protest that we've already seen. But it felt a little bit anticlimactic, but at the same time, there's still an episode left. This could end up being really important next week. And maybe nothing happens at the shooting. Just the fact that the shooting took place drives maybe some sort of legislation, or drives the government to take some sort of act that puts June and Luke in a bad position. But either way, it was a little bit of an anticlimactic ending for me. Also, I didn't understand why that little girl, Emma, who was struggling to recite the Pledge of Allegiance, why when she was struggling, why would her mom tell a rando white lady, yeah, you can go help her? What? Why wouldn't you go help your kid? What's she like, can I help? Who the fuck are you? And no? What was that? But, like I said, having said that, I thought this was a great episode. It was directed by Bradley Whitford, who plays Commander Lawrence. Shout out to Gina, host of Resisting Gilead podcast, who put me up on game about that one. I didn't watch the post show this week. I didn't know. But he was far and away the star of this episode. He carried, in my opinion, the 2 best scenes of this episode. And he's the kind of guy that up to this point, I've been kind of not on his side, but I believed him that he wants the best for everybody that he interacts with and that he really has good intentions. I mean, we've seen him helping out from day one. So I want to believe Commander Lawrence, and I have believed him up until this episode, because I feel like now his true intentions are a lot murkier. But I will get to Commander Lawrence in a little bit. I want to start with sticking with the theme of something being anticlimactic. We open this episode with the start of the mission that we ended last week's episode with, the mission to go to the Weiss school and get all these kids out. We find out it's in Colorado, which it's almost like they heard my complaints. They couldn't have because they didn't film this during the last week. But I talked about how this show does a poor job of like giving you locations and where they are relative to one another and where those characters are within those locations. And even though I don't know specifically where this like airplane hangar is that they opened the episode at, now I know, okay, well, at least the school's in Colorado. There was another state or city that was mentioned at some point as well. It just kind of helped me place myself. I don't know, I got a lot of saliva working up right now. I think it's because like I just finished eating and I haven't had a lot to drink, so I think probably like I'll just grab this here. I think maybe like my saliva glands are trying to like lubricate the inside of my mouth, which I failed to do. I got Essentia. It's the best fucking water, by the way. If you like water and you don't drink Essentia, you're drinking water wrong. But so Tuello. Well, actually, no. Before I even get to Tuello, let's talk about this soldier that they meet, who like. I don't know why they would telegraph his death like with like big neon lights in the street. Like this guy's like, it was straight out of like an 80s movie. Like, yeah, I love my daughter. I'm just trying to do this for her so I can get back home to her and love her with all my heart. And I'm like, oh fuck, he's gonna die. Sure enough. But Tuello says he's gonna let June and Luke watch the live feed of them doing this attack. And my immediate thought was, oh shit, this is gonna be so hype when this thing goes wrong and June and Luke are watching it live. I was envisioning it like, if you guys remember when President Obama was going after Osama bin Laden, we were watching that. And it was like, you see like, it's like night vision and it's like dark and it's like green and they're like going through, like it's like Call of Duty and shit. And they're like going around corners. And I'm like, what if this goes wrong? And like everybody sees it. That's how I felt about this military attack. And well, nobody got to see it go wrong because it went wrong before it even got started. Gilead found out about this mission. They shot down the planes. No survivors, including my man who couldn't wait to get back to his daughter. Like I said, it was telegraphed to the highest fucking degree. And again, a little anticlimactic. I'm thinking like, okay, they're going to do this attack. It's going to go terribly wrong. And they're like, nope, we ain't even doing the attack. Like, you don't even get that. We just going to have some motherfuckers die off screen and then we're going to toss the attack. Like, fuck. But I've now gotten out all of the issues that I had with this episode. And again, that was me being nitpicky. Those aren't big issues. Just kind of like, things I noted. So I want to move on with talking about Serena. This season, she's basically played the role of Offred, following June's like path, kind of step by step. And, Serena becoming a handmaid kind of feels like an inevitability. I don't want that for her just because it's too predictable. But I mean, they're telegraphing Serena becoming a handmaid to the same degree that they telegraphed that soldier dying. But this episode, Serena asked Miss Wheeler to go to the opening of the fertility clinic, which we all know she had a hand in. She had 4 fingers of a hand in. But she had, kind of a piece of shit. She asked if she can go to this thing, and I'm just thinking, like, did you forget what position you're in right now? Like, there's no way, like, you already know they're kind of treating you as a handmaid. Why would you think you could go to this? But the actress who plays Miss Wheeler has one hell of a scene here, man. There's a moment when the two of them are talking and you hear Noah start crying in the background. The face that Mrs. Wheeler makes when Noah starts crying should have immediately resulted in her death. Like, what kind of, like, the sheer hatred, disgust. Like, she looked disgusted that a baby would cry. And then she goes, she wants Serena to like pick up bottle feeding. Like, let's work on bottle feeding. And she's like, I don't know. I guess we could do that. She's like, well, we should do it for Noah. And I'm like, you ain't trying to bottle feed for Noah's sake. You try to bottle feed for your sake so you can have Serena out of the picture. And I like that unsaid, unspoken, reality. She's full Gilead. She considers that baby to be hers and she wants Serena out of the picture. And again, but they always bullshit each other. Like when you have like Handmaid and aunt, handmaid and wife, handmaid and commander. Whenever people are interacting with handmaids, they both bullshit each other. The handmaid's like, yeah, oh, that's a great idea. Like, they will nod their head to something that's totally fucked up. And then you have a situation like this where Miss Wheeler, and the Wheelers do this all the time, this gaslighting that they do with Serena. And she's like, yeah, we just want to make sure that Noah is comfortable on the bottom. Like, this ain't about Noah. You just don't want Serena around this kid. And Serena says, as it pertains to the bottle, like, she's like, Noah might get confused. And Miss Wheeler says, my smart boy wouldn't get confused. And somehow is able to complete that sentence without getting like a fist and her teeth shoved down her throat. Again, like, I don't know how she makes it out of this scene, man. Serena, just with all of the patience and ability to control her emotions, I would have completely lacked that. I'd have choked her with my bare hands, and that'd have been the end of me too. And now Hannah's just parentless because I'm dead. Because I was just, no way you saying that in front of me, and I'm not gonna kill you. So later, Serena decides, I'm gonna go above her head, and I'm gonna talk to Mr. Wheeler about going to the event. And she butters him up, and I put in my notes like, she's really buttering him up. And he goes, I'm fully buttered up, so what do you actually want? And she asks him to go to the thing, and I love. This was a funny ass episode. I love how he says he'll think about it, and she goes, praise be. He goes, oh yeah. like yeah, we say that. Okay, yeah, now get the fuck out of here. Like, he don't care about none of that shit. It's like the new age Gilead guy. It's like the fucking older guys, the people Commander Lawrence age. They're with all of the traditions and the culture and saying all the phrases and shit. And she's like, praise be. And young ass Mr. Wheeler's like, yeah, whatever the fuck, just get out of here. But he ultimately apparently ends up agreeing to this. But Serena isn't about to go to this event. It's a funny ass episode. She is not about to go to this event with an untouched face because she's about to get in that car, and this Miss Wheeler comes out and gives her 2 slaps. Like, what the fuck? Like, one wasn't enough. And then she calls her a whore, and I'm like, in what world do you fashion up the rationale to call a married woman who had a baby by her husband a whore? Like, what? You don't want over here carrying around a baby that ain't yours. Shut the fuck up. Anyway, I got the impression that this was more about Serena going like behind her back than it was about talking to her husband. Because she said something like, stay away from my husband. Like, I don't think it's about that. I think it's about the fact that I think Miss Wheeler is the one who wears the pants in this family. So when she said no, that should have been it. Serena thinks she's going above her head, going to Mr. Wheeler. He agrees. And I believe that Mrs. Wheeler had like a little conversation with him off screen. Because we later see Serena at the center, because he agreed to it. And she's with Noah, and she's selling some hopeful mothers on the greatness of Gilead. And the Wheelers show up. And it quickly becomes evident, I think, to me, that Mrs. Wheeler had this, had a conversation behind the scenes with her husband, because they come in as a united front, and they tell Serena, like, look, you need to go home and rest. We'll take Noah from here, because it's about Noah, not about you. We'll take Noah from here. You ain't coming back tomorrow. And Miss Wheeler is like, you can get the fuck out. And Serena's like, well, let me feed Noah first. And she's like, all right, no, you can do a bottle. She's like, I don't have a bottle. And it becomes this whole thing. And she's like, all right, fine, hurry up. And Mr. Wheeler goes, trying to be funny, I think that's for Noah to decide. And she shoots him a look, and he just like, never mind. So she's clearly in charge here. And then Serena then uses this baby feeding opportunity to escape. And I can't help but wonder if the woman that picked her up is a Gilead sympathizer that's just going to return her right back to the Wheelers, which, again, having escaped and ending right back up at the house, right out of the June Osborne / Offred playbook. It's also right out of the Game of Thrones playbook with Theon. So, I think it's going to get worse for Serena before it gets better. All right, so moving on to Commander Lawrence. Like I said, I've been of the belief this whole time that he's being genuine in his attempts to help June. And we've seen him be genuine throughout the course of this show. You know, he's presenting the best options. And I believe he is trying, and well, I did believe he is trying and being authentic and presenting all the ways that moving to New Bethlehem can benefit her. Well, I did feel that way until this episode. The botched military mission that resulted in all those deaths, Lawrence admits that he had a hand in that. And he was responsible for taking out these soldiers on this mission, taking out these planes. I make it sound like he went to attack people. He took down the planes and the people were a byproduct of that. But of course, he didn't give a fuck. But wouldn't that also mean... Oh, well, so here's my thought process. He goes, yeah, you know, America got wild. Y'all came over here, tried to fuck some shit up, and we took you out. My first thought was like, well, how did you even know about it? Next thought is, they got the location from that video that they were anonymously sent. They got it from the metadata in that video. Who sent the video? Had to have been Lawrence. Who else would have sent it? And then now it makes me wonder what his motivations are, because why would you proactively start this situation? If you don't do anything, nothing happens. But you send the video. Did nobody ask you to send a video? June didn't say, hey, can you send me a video? Nothing. He sends a video, and it comes off in that moment as him kind of like extending an olive branch, like doing something nice for her. Mark gets the metadata. They find the location. He already knows they're coming. They take out the planes. So why would you do that? It seems to me that Commander Lawrence, and the more I thought about this after watching the episode, he's utilizing the carrot and the stick routine, but he's only showing June the carrot, and he's giving her the stick behind her back. Pause. So the carrot is, you know, you could see Hannah, you could see Nick. It's way better than Gilead. Nothing's gonna happen. But then apparently behind her back, he's setting up circumstances that make it so she doesn't really have a choice if she wants to be with Hannah. Because in her mind, she's still like, before this episode, she's thinking, we can get Hannah out. I don't need to go into New Bethlehem. So he must be thinking, I need her to stop thinking she can get Hannah out. So he sets up this situation, and now she's in a position where she's like, oh man, that was our best chance and we're fucked. Maybe now she's looking like, all right, maybe I should do the New Bethlehem thing. So it feels like he's trying to put her in a position to where New Bethlehem is her only choice if she wants Hannah back. Also, during the phone convo, June really lays into him about his wife, Eleanor, how she hated him, she'd rather die, all this kind of stuff. We see him crying over this, but he tells her that Eleanor would have still wanted him to help her. And I believe him, but I don't. Like, I do think that Eleanor would want him to help her, but I also think that's not the reason he's helping her. Like, is him crying over Eleanor? So he's crying over Eleanor, but June doesn't know that. We see it. Is he crying over her, or is he crying over the fact that he's like lying on her memory? Like, he's using, you know how people say, I swear on my mom, or I swear on my dead. He's essentially kind of saying like, I swear on my dead wife, I'm doing the right thing. When he knows that he's not. Like, again, could be me reading way too much into it, but like, that's the vibe I kind of got. And then like, thinking about the whole situation with the military operation, it just changed the way I looked at all of his actions. So like with that scene, my immediate thought was like, oh man, it's so beautiful. He's so upset about his wife. And then June says all this horrible stuff. And he goes, she still would have wanted me to help you. I'm like, he's so mature. He means well. But then think about the military shit. It just kind of skewed how I interpret his actions. And now I just don't know. Oh, and then he asked her to like publicly decry the attack. And it's like, okay, so that's a win for you. So it's like, he's setting up all these wins for himself, but he's putting June in really shitty places to make it happen. And that's just what makes me think this is all a ploy. When we first see Lawrence in this episode, though, he's with Aunt Lydia, who we haven't seen in weeks. And they meet with Miss Putnam. And Miss Putnam takes longer than everyone else in the room and all of us watching to come to the realization that this is a marriage proposal. Not a marriage proposal in the traditional sense, but a literal proposal of marriage. Not will you marry me, you know, that kind of deal. Not, you know, getting down on one knee. But This results in a great back and forth that I thought was incredible. She's like, this is a marriage proposal? And he goes, yup. What do you say? Like, who says that? Like, what do you say to a marriage? And then she goes, do I have a choice? And he looks at Lydia and goes, that's hurtful. Like he said, great line delivery in that exchange. But he decides to leave the room. Ms. Putnam tells Aunt Lydia, she's like, he killed my husband in front of me. Like, why would I really fuck with him? And then Lydia says he's willing to overlook it and you should too. And I thought that was such a great line because for her, overlooking the fact that this man who wants you to marry him killed your husband, that's a huge ask. But Lydia kind of putting those things on even ground, like he's willing to overlook the fact that your husband was a punk ass bitch. Like those things aren't the same. But I love how Lydia kind of puts it in that way. She says it so nicely, like, which she's willing to overlook. Like, I don't know. I just thought that was a great line. And again, just shows just how fucked in the brain a lot of these people in Gilead are. But then we see Lawrence. He hasn't actually left. He's standing just outside the room listening, and he looks sad. And my immediate thought was that his feelings were hurt, that Miss Putnam didn't want to marry him. But now I'm just wondering if, like, marrying Miss Putnam is, again, just a play to get the New Bethlehem shit to work. And that New Bethlehem is his goal by any means necessary, and it's not the pretty picture that he's painting it out to be. Like, does he really want to, like, again, carrot and stick, right? He's looking at it like, this works for me, this works for you, we should do this, everybody's gonna be cool. When in reality, I don't think he cares whether or not it works for her. It works for him because he knows how the other commanders look at him not having a wife. And he's been saying the whole time he didn't give a fuck. But now, and he passed up the opportunity to have something with Serena, but now all of a sudden he's interested in marrying Miss Putnam? Like, this feels like a play and not a genuine, like, I think this is what's best for both of us. So that's why I say I feel like with Lawrence, I'm looking at him a little bit differently. Now I'm unsure. I was on his side, like, I believe him. Now I don't think I do. I'm suspicious now. I don't know. Unfortunately, we also see Nick again this week. I fucking hate Nick. Mark sets up a meeting with him between Nick and June because he wants June to convince Nick to help them with the whole, Gilead situation. I have a couple of thoughts on that. One, I don't care about Nick, and I don't want to see him anymore. I don't care if I ever see him again. Two, I really want and need to know the logistics of how these meetings are set up. Because he's like, I can set up a meeting today, and then 2 scenes later, they're in the same location talking. Like, I need to know how difficult is it for some people to, like, I don't even know where this place is. Like, is it in Gilead? I mean, I'm assuming it's in Canada, but like, how does he get to Canada like same day with nobody wondering where he went? Like, how does the communication work? Like, there's just so many, like, I don't even know where they are before they meet up. Like, I don't like just saying, like, oh, here they are having this meeting. Like, if I know that Nick is in, I'm going to use places that we can all relate to. If Nick is in New York and June is in LA, you ain't setting that shit up same day. I mean, you might, but you better show me a scene of somebody taking a plane. Like, I don't know how far they are normally, but I know Nick is in Gilead and she ain't. So how does this happen so easily? And even if it's not easy, you make it look easy by going, I can set up a meeting. I can set it up today. And then the meeting's in the next scene. If it took a whole lot of work, I'd like to see that. And then I don't need any more tearful, like, love you and goodbyes. Like, there's been way too many of those for them to still have any kind of an impact. I don't like them together. And refer to number 1, I don't like Nick and I don't care about Nick. I don't ever need to see Nick again. I don't understand his appeal. He looks like a child, but then he's like completely like bland and emotionless. Like, he looks like unseasoned chicken. If unseasoned chicken was a person, it would be Nick. Like, that's what he looks like. Why does anybody like him? He's not good looking. Like, I don't get it. Anyway, but of interest as it pertains to Nick, but not about Nick because he's not interesting, is his wife Rose, and she's pregnant. And now we know she has some sort of medical issue. She walks with a cane. Presumably the only reason she didn't end up in the colonies with her, I'm assuming, some sort of birth defect, is she has a very powerful father. Now, the show has not laid out why she walks with a cane. I only know about it because I sought that information out. The show fucked up by not saying that. Because then in later in the episode, when the wives are talking and the commanders are talking in another room, one of the wives mentions like, oh man, we don't want your baby to come out with any genetic disabilities. And there's probably people who are like, why would that happen? But my thought was like, well, I know she walked with a cane. Let me see if there's any issues. And they talk about it in like one of the after shows. I think you could find it. You look up articles or something like that. You could find out. But she has something wrong with her. The only thing that's weird with me about that is the wives imply that it'd be problematic if the kid has some sort of deformity, but I'm like, or I don't think they said deformity, but I think they just said like a genetic issue or something like to that effect. But if Rose's father is powerful enough to keep her there, why would he not also be powerful enough to keep her kid there? So like, I'm wondering if maybe something's going to happen to her father to where now she's no longer protected and thus her kid is no longer protected. So if she has a kid that has some sort of genetic issue, maybe that kid doesn't end up being spared. I don't know, but we'll find out in a week or in season 6. So, I'm done with everything I want to talk about. Wow, that went well, I say. So I want to wrap up with a couple of thoughts. I liked how Serena still has like a bit of a tummy. Like when you watch most shows and movies, after someone gives birth, they're like immediately back to flat stomach. When I say immediately back, I don't mean like in real life where immediately back would be a few weeks. I mean like the next scene, like immediately. And I always notice it. I'm like, that's so unrealistic. Granted, I have 4 kids, so I know what a woman's body is like post giving birth and how having a baby can affect a woman's body and how long it takes to return to that, how it can vary for different women, all that kind of stuff. So when you have characters that are like completely flat stomach in like the next scene, I'm just like, all right, you didn't even try to be realistic here. So I like the fact that she still has like a little bit of a tummy, but I also think too, like, I believe she just had a baby. So like that might actually be just how she is right now. She might be dealing with that, dealing with trying to get her body back how she wants it, whatever the case may be. But whatever it is, I like the fact that she is portrayed in a realistic way for a woman who just gave birth. So I thought that was cool and respectful to, all mothers, really. So the next thing is the whole time, June has been fighting to get Hannah back. In the back of my head, I've been thinking, man, it's gonna suck when you finally get Hannah and you realize she's full fucking Gilead. She's like Agnes and she don't want nothing to do with you. She snitches on you and gets you in trouble and fucks everything up. You're like, we did all this for nothing. She don't even want to leave. And well, turns out Hannah is apparently a chip off the old block. We see her take a... I'm wondering if she's playing if she's doing the same thing June suggested Serena do, like playing the role until she can get revenge. But we see her break out a pencil and write her actual name, Hannah, on a piece of paper within a book. And all I can say about that is all those words I just said would make any commander in Gilead completely lose their shit. Like, what? A pencil? Paper? Her real name? A book? What? Every word of that sentence is a Gilead violation. But apparently Hannah's about that life, so she doesn't care. She's gonna be dangerous. And lastly, this wasn't the murder face, but we got more June face close-ups. They're very similar to my videos, where it's just like my head in the video. They do this with June, like they did it while she was watching supposed to be watching the live feed of this attack. And I just wonder, like, who said, like, what's like the most profound, deep, beautiful shot in the fucking world that you could possibly imagine? It's a close-up of someone's face. And someone else went, I agree with that. Let's do it 10 times per episode. Like, why do they do this all the time? I don't get it. Like, do they think that's really some slick shit? Like, I'm gonna watch that and be like, yo, this is some artistic shit. Like, you do it 15 fucking times per episode where I have to see her face fill up the screen every time, to the point where now I notice it and it takes me out of it. And now I'm sitting here talking to y'all like, why the fuck do they do this every week? Where they be like, hey, you know what we haven't done in like 10 minutes? Let's do a close-up shot of Elizabeth's face. Like, oh my God, I don't know why they keep doing that fucking shot. But I'm at the 30-minute mark. I'm gonna wrap this one up. Like I said, I really enjoyed this episode. I like how it changed my perception on Lawrence. I like the directions they're taking Serena. I like the fact that this whole thing looks like it's starting to come to a head, especially with Hannah and getting her out, New Bethlehem, all this stuff. I like where everything is going. It's interesting that the show is kind of taking away that sustained feeling of dread, but we still have it because we're so fucking accustomed to being beaten like this. Like, it's like a weird Stockholm syndrome. Like, even now I'm like, what if the woman who picked up Serena is a Gilead supporter and takes her right back to the Wheelers? Like, of course that's where I'm gonna go, because that's how this show has treated me as a viewer over 4 seasons, to expect the worst at all times. So, I like that. But anyway, I'm excited for episode 10. I think it's called Safe is the name of the episode, which raise your hand if you think raise your hand if you think anybody is safe. I didn't think so. I'll see you guys next week for the finale. You can expect that video around the same time that you find this one. It's 7:30 p.m. East Coast time. This should be up in, I would guess, maybe about an hour or so. So 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So I would say expect 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, 9 o'clock, give or take, next week for the finale. And until then, peace.